At 4:13 a.m., the valley woke to screaming sirens and a sky glowing bright orange. I stood barefoot in my driveway, coughing through smoke, staring in shock. My barn was on fire. But the fire wasn't what brought cops, firefighters, and black SUVs racing down the gravel. It was what was inside. Brenda Walsh, my neighbor, didn't know when she sneaked over with gas cans that she wasn't just burning my property, she was setting fire to a secret National Police K-9 training ground hidden behind my old barn. Now, dogs trained to find bombs and track criminals ran through the smoke, handlers yelling, spotlights sweeping the fields. Brenda, in a nightgown and flip-flops, was running for the woods. For a moment, the chaos felt unreal. Barking dogs, alarms, screeching tires. I stood frozen, half horrified, half amazed, thinking, she's done it. Brenda had declared war on the U.S. government because she hated how my barn looked from her window. 2 years ago, when I bought the old farm in Meadowview, it was a mess. The barn leaned, fields were wild, and neighbors gave fake smiles, hiding judgment. Brenda didn't bother with smiles. From day one, she treated me like a problem to erase. She'd walk by, arms crossed, writing notes on a clipboard, calling Pine County to complain about my dogs if one ran free. She once taped a sign to my mailbox, "This is not a junkyard." I stayed patient, rebuilding the barn with old wood to keep its charm, avoiding loud parties, keeping fields tidy. But Brenda didn't care about my efforts. She hated that she couldn't control me. A year ago, a friend in federal law enforcement offered a wild idea. They needed a quiet, private place for a secret K-9 training program, so hidden even local police wouldn't know. It needed seclusion, low traffic, and owners who'd stay silent. I laughed at first, but it made sense. After checks, inspections, and thick NDAs, my barn became a secret fortress. Outside, it looked like hay and tractors. Inside, it had strong walls, cool kennels, high-tech training areas, and tons of cameras. We hid the activity with unmarked trucks and odd-hour dog rotations. It worked perfectly until Brenda called the barn an eyesore. In recent months, she got worse. She accused me of illegal business, called city code enforcement so often they ignored her, and once tried to follow an unmarked truck, but stopped when it reached the sheriff's station. At an HOA meeting, she loudly said the barn should be torn down for neighborhood beauty. People laughed her off, but Brenda didn't quit. She planned in secret. 2 nights before the fire, I caught her sneaking around the barn with a flashlight. When I confronted her, she yelled about checking for rats and ran off before I could call the police. I filed a report, but the feds didn't think she was a real threat. Typical Brenda, a handler joked. No one expected she'd go this far. When the fire started, I didn't notice at first. My house alarm screamed, waking me. I smelled smoke before seeing it. The security system alerted authorities. By the time I ran outside, the barn's emergency systems were on. Metal doors sealing training zones, sprinklers blasting, K-9s barking wildly. In the fire's glow, I saw Brenda dragging a half-empty gas can across the field, slipping on wet grass, trying to escape. I thought she'd get away, but a K-9 team, moving like shadows, surrounded her. Shadow, a huge Belgian Malinois, tackled her with perfect aim. Brenda screamed loud enough to wake the next town. Federal agents cuffed her, reading her rights as she ranted about property values and HOA rules. As firefighters fought the blaze, the craziness hit me. Brenda tried to fix the neighborhood by committing arson against a secret federal site. Now she was crying about HOA fees in the smoke and flashing lights. I felt angry but also victorious. This wasn't a small fight anymore. Brenda had crossed a huge line, and she didn't know the storm coming next. The fire would be stopped, but the investigation it started would shatter her world. Brenda's arrest wasn't the end. It was the start of bigger chaos. By morning, Meadowview buzzed with rumors. Some said terrorists attacked, others thought the barn was a drug lab. One neighbor swore she saw snipers in her roses. Brenda, out on bail fast, told everyone I was the real criminal, claiming I set the fire for insurance money and to ruin the neighborhood's visual harmony. It would have been funny if it wasn't dangerous. She posted online, tagged news stations, and called city officials, demanding my arrest, calling me a rogue farmer running illegal operations. But she was bugging people tied to the federal agencies training those dogs. Fire investigators arrived early, before the dew dried. I watched from my porch, sipping bad coffee, as black SUVs, fire trucks, and unmarked vans filled my driveway. Brenda, in a floral dress with a clipboard, marched to the lead investigator, introducing herself as HOA president and demanding to oversee the investigation for fairness. I nearly choked on my coffee. The investigator, a tall man with a serious face and earpiece, listened for 30 seconds before firmly sending her away. Brenda stomped back, yelling about property values and hidden dangers. She wasn't done. Spotting a younger agent, a woman with a scanner near the barn ruins, Brenda swooped in, waving her finger, ranting about government overreach. She demanded the agent show ID and face a community review. The agent smiled, nodded, and handed Brenda a card. When Brenda read it, her face went white. She mumbled about a phone call and ran off. Later, I learned the woman was a senior Homeland Security agent who could close an airport with one call. Brenda had just tried to boss her around. If Brenda had stayed quiet, she might have kept some dignity. Instead, she paced the street with her clipboard, whispering conspiracies. Meanwhile, the investigation moved fast. Fire marshals found Brenda's work in the barn's corner, stopped by sprinklers, 2 melted gas cans with Meadowview Garage Sale 2022 stickers, one with Brenda's initials in marker. It was so sloppy it was almost funny, but it was serious. Agents bagged every piece of evidence and took it away. When they asked for my statement, I told them everything: Brenda's trespassing, her years of harassment. They nodded, already knowing more than I said. It hit me. They weren't just investigating arson. They saw this as a federal attack. Brenda was on a big list now. By midday, it was hot, and tension choked the neighborhood. Brenda called an emergency HOA meeting on the sidewalk. About 20 confused residents showed up, sweating. Standing on a folding chair with a megaphone, she said the community was under attack by rogue elements and she'd take back Meadowview. She got 2 sentences out before 2 agents approached. One flashed a badge, the other calmly asked her to step down. Brenda screamed about free speech, but they took her to a black SUV for questioning. It wasn't an arrest yet, but it looked bad, especially when the SUV sped off. Word spread fast. By afternoon, news vans arrived, reporters shoving for spots on my driveway, yelling questions. I stayed inside, watching from my kitchen window, stunned at how wild my life had become. Brenda's husband, Tim, a quiet man rarely seen, tried to shoo reporters from their lawn. His frantic shouts, "We didn't know. We thought it was just an old barn," made things worse, leading every evening news headline. Inside the investigation vans, agents built a strong case. Hidden cameras in birdhouses and fake farm tools around the barn caught Brenda dragging gas cans and lighting the fire, smirking as she recorded it on her phone. Her online posts were worse, rants on weird forums accusing me of running a foreign training camp, warning of community collapse, urging neighbors to act. If she thought she'd play the innocent protector in court, that dream was over. As the sun set and news crews left, I sat on my porch, tired but oddly satisfied. Brenda had been a constant annoyance, but now she'd gone too far, waking a giant she couldn't handle. The story could have ended with her arrest, but it got wilder. Agents asked how Brenda knew exactly where to hit the barn, a weak spot not visible outside. It wasn't luck, it showed planning and obsession. They checked neighborhood cameras and found Brenda's setup. Cameras in her decorative birdhouses, on light poles disguised as Christmas lights, even a drone hidden in a kid's toy plane by my fence. She'd been spying on my property for months. The funny part? Brenda was terrible at spying. She didn't encrypt anything. Her Wi-Fi password was Brenda1234. Agents found tons of blurry footage, me mowing, K9 trainers parking at night, dogs in SUVs. She logged it all in a spreadsheet called Evidence for Community Trial, with silly notes like suspicious or must burn. Next to me fixing a hose, she wrote, possible secret pipeline. A dog jumping a hay bale was military attack training. Agents laughed. If she hadn't committed crimes, they might have let her go for being foolish. But her huge data pile showed she'd been plotting against me for a year. Meanwhile, the Meadowview HOA fell apart. Brenda's allies, who backed her gossip, faced questioning. Most cracked fast. One old board member said Brenda convinced them my barn hid smuggled animals. Another admitted Brenda held backyard meetings to plan forcing me out with fake fines for nighttime noise, dogs barking in training, or strange vehicles, federal SUVs. The fines had no legal basis, just made up. Agents followed the money, finding Brenda and friends took HOA fees for a community fund, used for fancy parties, spa trips, and her legal fights against me. Every neighbor had paid for Brenda's war without knowing. When residents learned this, they were furious. Town hall meetings had quiet retirees yelling. Signs on poles demanded Brenda's exile. Someone threw a Goodbye Brenda block party with a bounce house and a barbecue shaped like a jail. While this drama played out, Brenda sank deeper into trouble. Burning a federal site, endangering agents, and ruining secret equipment carried big penalties. Her lawyer, a nervous wreck, argued she didn't know it was federal property. Agents shut that down. Signs were clear, and footage showed her ignoring warnings. She faced charges of arson, federal property destruction, obstructing operations, and even unauthorized spying. Even if reduced, she'd face huge fines and maybe years in jail. Brenda didn't learn. Facing jail, she held press conferences, ranting about saving the neighborhood from shadow agencies. Only fringe blogs listened. Real News called her a lunatic who burned a government site over a neighbor's barn. I couldn't go to the store without someone nodding or giving me free coffee. Someone left a stuffed German shepherd with sunglasses on my porch, with a note, "National security guarding you." With Brenda off the HOA board, a special election picked new leaders. I didn't run. I wanted no part of HOA politics after this. A neighbor, Colonel Henry Brooks, a retired Army officer, won easily with a plan of no nonsense, no harassment, no secret cameras. He erased Brenda's fake rules and fines and opened the HOA's finances for all to see. Meadowview felt free for the first time in years. The best part came when Homeland Security called privately. They were impressed with my help and the barn's setup, offering to buy more of my land at a high price to build an official K9 facility, listing me as a key partner. I laughed. Brenda tried to ruin me and instead got me a federal deal. It was perfect. As I signed, I looked where the old barn stood. Crews cleared the ashes, starting a bigger, stronger facility, a training ground where dogs would bark right across from Brenda's now foreclosed house. Life had a great sense of humor. Brenda's court hearings were a show. The first was meant to be simple: set bail, list charges. Instead, it was a mess no one forgot. The Pine County Courthouse was packed, news vans circling, people with chairs and popcorn. Brenda shuffled in, wearing a bad blazer, glaring. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted. Her lawyer, looking miserable, guided her as she muttered angrily. She had no clue how bad it was. 5 minutes in, the prosecutor, a sharp woman used to handling fools, listed charges: arson of federal property, obstructing operations, endangering agents, unauthorized surveillance, possible espionage. Each hit Brenda harder, her confidence fading. When the prosecutor mentioned birdhouse cameras, the crowd laughed. The toy plane drone got a smile from the judge. Brenda's lawyer tried to object but was overruled. The evidence was too strong. Brenda's defense was a disaster. Given a chance to speak, she rambled about secret governments and neighborhood pride, accusing the judge of bias because your dog barks at me. The courtroom roared with laughter, even the bailiff struggling to stay serious. It was a meltdown like in funny movies. The judge, done with the chaos, ordered Brenda held for mental evaluation and led her away, screaming about rights. Her voice echoed in the halls. While Brenda's world fell, mine changed fast. Construction started on the new K-9 facility. Steel beams, fences, training yards, handler dorms, even a helicopter pad. It wasn't just a hidden site anymore. It was a national K-9 center. My land stood proud, a symbol of fighting back against nonsense. The media storm didn't stop. Brenda's story went national. Comedians joked about her, memes spread. One showed her angry face with "When you fight the FBI with HOA rules." Serious news called it a warning about power-hungry neighbors. Old friends called, laughing, asking for interviews. I said no, I didn't need fame. I was happy watching the world see Brenda's craziness. The real win wasn't headlines or buildings, it was Meadowview's change. Without Brenda's poison, people came together. Kids played freely, neighbors held barbecues and movie nights, petty fences came down. I smiled at people I once distrusted. It was like the neighborhood could breathe after years of stress. Brenda's empty, overgrown house, taken by the bank, showed her failure. Months later, the K-9 facility bought it, bulldozed it, and made it an agility course for dogs. Every day, German Shepherds and Malinois leaped where Brenda schemed. It was beautiful. Brenda's sentence came quietly after months of court and evaluations. She didn't get the max, but got 5 years probation under federal watch, huge fines she couldn't pay, a permanent ban from community roles, and a restraining order keeping her 500 feet from government sites, including my land. Best of all, her plea deal made her do 2,000 hours of community service, starting with cleaning K-9 training yards, Homeland Security's choice. Life wrote the best jokes. One evening, on the training field, watching new K-9 teams under the sunset, I thought about the wild year, from a neighbor's fight to federal probes and headlines, all sparked by a clipboard and bad attitude. Brenda thought her HOA power let her control reality. Instead, she burned herself and gave me a lifetime chance. The facility's director, a tough ex-Special Forces woman, gave me a plaque, Luke Carter, citizen partner in national security. I laughed. I didn't feel like a hero, just someone who survived a storm of pettiness and stood taller. Months passed, and Meadowview settled into a lighter, friendlier place. The K-9 facility grew, but not in a bad way. Dogs and handlers became local stars, jogging trails or showing off for school kids. Saturday demos drew families with coffee and chairs, watching dogs leap. Where there was once fear, now there was pride, a sense our small town was part of something big. Brenda became a legend told at block parties. Newcomers heard of the woman who fought the government with gasoline. Stories grew wild. Some said she rode a flaming lawnmower against agents. It was silly but funnier than the truth. Her name meant any pushy neighbor behavior. If someone fussed about fence height or barking, someone said, "Don't go full Brenda," and everyone laughed. The old Brenda property, now an agility field, hosted statewide dog competitions. I'd stand there, watching dogs soar, wondering if Brenda ever drove by, seeing the future she tried to ruin. Part of me hoped she did. It'd be the perfect, silent punishment. I used the government's payout to fix my home and add a guest house. Friends joked about needing vests or dog searches to visit. I didn't mind. The humor healed a place once full of tension. The best part was the neighbors. Without Brenda's division, people who barely spoke now shared meals, fixed fences, swapped garden tips. Block parties returned with potlucks and kids' games. Even grumpy residents admitted life was better without HOA bullying. No one missed fake fines or surprise checks. People kept their homes fine without a mean boss. One evening, as the sun turned the fields gold, I watched handlers train dogs. They moved perfectly, all serious, until a clumsy pup fell off a jump and bounced up, tail wagging. Handlers laughed, the sound floating free. I realized Brenda controlled everything from fear, of change, of losing power. But when she went too far, she made space for a community built on trust, where mistakes got laughs, not punishment. I found an old notebook from the HOA wars, pages of citations, complaints, threats. It showed how tiring life under Brenda was. I thought about burning it, but kept it in a drawer, not for nostalgia, but as a reminder. Freedom isn't just big wins or court battles. Sometimes it's surviving petty control until it falls apart. Word came that Brenda moved towns away, renting a small apartment, no HOA. She worked cleaning offices, still blaming everyone but herself. Some said she tried starting a committee at her new place, but got laughed out. True or not, I didn't care. Her story wasn't mine anymore. As fall came, the K9 facility held a community event with food trucks, music, and dog demos. I gave a short speech, looking at my neighbors' smiles, feeling strong not for me, but for us. I thanked the handlers, dogs, agents, and neighbors for sticking together. Closing, I said, life gives you a Brenda sometimes, but if you're stubborn and lucky, you turn that Brenda into something amazing. The applause was warm, real, full of quiet victory no bully could break. As dogs barked and laughter filled the air, I knew we were ready for any fight. We'd beaten the worst enemy, one with a fake smile and a clipboard, thinking she ruled the world. And we did it together.